Do you ever see an abandoned factory building and think about what it might become in the future? Whether it's going to get torn down or maybe some apartment buildings or maybe an office building. But what if it was able to enable manufacturing again, but perhaps not in the same way as it once did? Now, I'm standing in front of this campus here. It's 13 acres, over 300,000 square feet. And this was a building that was built up during World War II and later had a long life supplying the automotive industry. And now it's supporting a lot of new innovators. I was hoping to show you guys a little bit what's going on here, explain a little bit about some of the opportunities that might exist with some of those buildings. I grew up in New York, I'm in Detroit now, but I've lived in many other cities, in California, in Philadelphia. And you see these buildings, these just massive buildings. What if we enabled builders in a smaller size to have access to the same sort of space as larger industries do? Now, the tools of industry, the tools of manufacturing are becoming more and more accessible, with 3D printing and laser cutters and computer-aided design and all these sort of things. But the space seems to be continually a limiting factor. Now, this is not necessarily the most pretty building, but it works. And many times in manufacturing, that's really all that matters. You need to have things like heavy power. You're not just working with standard 110 voltage, like you need 220, sometimes 480. If you wanted to increase the power of a space, it might be possible. As far as the zoning issue, it might not even be viable. It's not so easy to actually get approved for this heavy industrial zoning. Now, this building has it, but if they lose it, they won't have it again. So here we are, able to operate within this metro area and actually build things in this heavy industrial type of way. Having truck docks, cranes overhead, stuff like that. If you're a company that's just trying to prove out your first production run or prototype, you really just need to find something that works, that you can get things going, make it happen. And that's really the intent behind this space. It's just down the road from New Lab in Michigan Central, and there's amazing things going on there. But quite often a company might outgrow that, or they might have a use that might not work in that space. And there are many other spaces throughout the country that still exist, but they're starting to become less and less. I mean, the apartment building that I live in used to be an industrial space, and we're seeing this more and more, but I really think that we need to hold on to these things and find ways to activate them. And I'm really fortunate to be part of a group that's helping to support this project called the 23rd. There's many different folks involved, notably the landlord, who just been willing enough to say, yes, let's give this a go, believe in some of these crazy ideas. And it's happening. There's many companies that are operating out of here, and it's pretty amazing. You have Beacon Manufacturing doing low volume, high mix manufacturing, which is really important. If you want to actually enable more manufacturing, you need to enable this lower volume stuff. And then you have other companies that are just building larger scale things. You have this company called Electric Outdoors building these accessory dwelling units, and they were able to come in very quickly. The story goes that basically they came in on a Wednesday and they got a lease on a Thursday and they're moving in on Friday. This stuff just doesn't happen, but it's so necessary. Hardware companies, they need to move fast, and we need to give them tools to do so. Finding folks that really understand that is so important. You have this other company called Knox Metals doing really cool things, that basically thinking in a similar way, hey, we need to improve the way that metal is processed. It comes from the mill, and then ultimately it's going to get CNC'd or cut into some sort of shape or whatever the case may be. But that process is really antiquated. And they're able to bring some new technology and new innovation to that space. They were able to set up a massive saw in here and really do some pretty awesome stuff. But I just think about if they needed to or wanted to set up their own space. One, you're very unlikely to get 10,000 square feet that's also going to have a massive crane inside. It might exist, and somebody feel free to prove me wrong in the comments, but I think that's generally reserved for these larger spaces. But the problem is, who is ready to take on 100,000 square feet when you're just starting out? Not many people. And I don't really know what I'm asking for or calling for with this? I mean, for one, I just wanted to start with a little bit of exposure to this. So as you guys know, I'm pretty excited about this idea of seeing more domestic manufacturing and what that might enable. But if you want to think about the future, you really need to understand the past. And what I think a lot about is the height of manufacturing in the US. And it was really built up around the same time that this building was built, World War II. In a short period of time, the US effectively 5x'd its manufacturing capacity. And this building is a great example of that because it's just got some real power behind it, both figuratively and literally. They were producing munitions, airplane wings, all sorts of different stuff. And they needed a lot of power. They needed cranes. They put certain details in, like they had 20-inch concrete floors. And for those not that familiar, as I once was, apparently it's not that common, but it's really valuable. It's on a rail spur. Again, not that common, but very valuable and important. So this is really built up and actually is a great example of how fast they were building this and how necessary this was to be built. They actually built right over a church. There was a church, they didn't have time to tear it down fully, so they actually just built right over it. And the remnants of it still exist, which is pretty amazing. I guess from my side, there does seem to be some encouragement that we're going to try to increase our manufacturing capacity in a fast way, similar to what we did around those times, but perhaps without the threat of war. Certainly myself as a veteran that served in Iraq, I'm no way advocating for war, but I do also recognize that we really need to have an ability to defend ourselves. Otherwise, we're almost certainly going to go to war, because it's a lot easier for somebody to pick a fight with somebody that can't defend themselves. If we do need to increase our manufacturing capacity, how are we going to do that? How can we do that quickly? Now, I'll argue that building up new buildings, what's called greenfields, is not necessarily always the best move, and it's certainly not so accessible. But if there are opportunities to utilize these existing spaces, as it's starting to be proven to be true, I think we need to be thinking about this more. And maybe it's not just one company taking over all this space, but there's opportunities to have these micro factories. So instead of one company taking 100,000 square feet, you have 10 companies taking 10,000 square feet, or maybe a mix of that. Now, I don't want to suggest that this is easy, that it's just, hey, let's do this, and I'm not that naive. But I do think that we have to think in new and innovative ways if we're going to do new and innovative things. After the war effort, this became a stamping facility for the automotive industry. Basically, they're stamping panels for vehicles, everything from hoods to fenders to trunks. They would stamp them, they would coat them, all in the same facility, and they were really fueling this ecosystem here locally. And I think that that's really the opportunity, is to build a similar type of ecosystem locally, but in new and different ways, right? So you have one group that's cutting metal and another group that's CNCing it, and then somebody is welding that together into full sub-assemblies or assemblies or whatever the case may be. As a creative person, as a visual thinker, I can very quickly envision like how we can potentially see a lot more of these spaces pop up throughout the rest of the US. Or really throughout the rest of the world. Why not? And maybe this is happening more than I know. I mean, granted, I've only been in this space for somewhat of a limited period, but I don't know, you guys tell me, what do you think? What's your experience? What are some of the blockers? I'm sure there are some. It's complicated working many different companies in one space, but it seems to be working. Right now, this is the first building to come online, and it's pretty much filled about 50% of the capacity. It seems like the rest of it will probably be filled in the next couple of months. And then there's other buildings on the campus that will continue to get filled up as well. At least I see, it seems to be a need, and I'd love to see more of it. So I'd love to hear what you guys think about this. Could you see this happening in your city? Do you think that different policymakers could potentially support this? Are there ways that we can get more money behind this? I mean, granted, we're just kind of making it work in this space now, but certainly with a little bit more invested in the space, it could become even more viable and more valuable to more folks, maybe some more shared equipment and that sort of thing. There's already a lot of like shared services, which is great. Forklift, I mentioned the rail spur, there's a truck scale on site, there's all sorts of different things. Having access to the cranes is really helpful. People are getting more and more creative in the way that we can use and activate the space, right? Drones is becoming a bigger thing in the area. We have 2 drone takeoff and landing pads right on the campus, and they're able to leverage this advanced aerial mobility zone. The city and the state are supporting this, encourage this type of innovation and get folks building drones and really taking on some of these new opportunities in manufacturing and leveraging this technology in new and innovative ways, right? Building that ecosystem. What do you guys think? Have you seen this sort of thing before? Do you know somebody that could potentially use a space like this? Pretty close to getting the right folks lined up to take the rest of these spaces. And there's some other projects underway to continue to renovate and improve the space. I'm going to show you one of the spaces that's more renovated, and you can get a better picture for what that might look like. You look at something like this electric outdoors behind us, like they're really using the space. These things are 16 feet plus tall, and they put solar panels on top of them, and they utilize the cranes and all that sort of thing. This stuff, it's necessary. Now, this is another section of the space that's been renovated. It's got polished concrete floors, it's all painted, windows replaced, some HVAC, etc. But I just wanted to show you another version of the space. You have robotics company back here testing their autonomous robots. You have some different energy companies. There's one company making ammonia fuels, which is pretty wild. And I think there's another company coming in here that's going to do some hydrogen power, and they have all sorts of unique tech there. This project overall was supported by a lot of different stakeholders. I've called out a few of them. New Lab was certainly one of them. Detroit Industrial Warehouses that is the kind of landlord of this whole space. Beacon Manufacturing. There's an investment group behind this called 640 Oxford, and they've been really supportive. I'd love to hear what you guys think. And it feels pretty great to be even just a small part of helping to enable that sort of thing. Finding ways to get to yes. I think that that's really what's important. And that's really the spirit of what drives this whole thing here. I think that that's the spirit of what drives New Lab, finding ways to say yes when others say no. And I think it's easy to underestimate how important that is, how it really takes a village. How you really need to have that ecosystem to support you, whether it be, physically, emotionally, or whatever the case may be. I'm excited to be part of this innovative spirit and really this renaissance, if you will. So I hope this video was helpful or interesting or insightful. I hope that it might inspire you to be involved in a project like this, or encourage that, or even just give us feedback. Let us know what you're thinking. Really, I just want to see more folks building things and showing that innovative spirit that I know exists. Many people don't get a chance to witness, and I look forward to sharing more of that with you guys, and see you next time. All right, take care.